We are live talking New Orleans Saints with Darrion Gray of whodatdish.com. Thanks for tuning in once again as we are in for another long run, hopefully here, because you never know what's going to happen in life. But this is the first of 32 NFL team previews for the offseason, which has just kind of kicked off over the past week. And our very first interview is with Darrion on the New Orleans Saints. How's it going, Darrion?
It's going well, man. I'm happy for the offseason. Didn't expect the Saints to be playing in the postseason. So about right where I expected to be around this time. So it's good.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah, there was when you're a rebuilding team, all you do want to see to consider it a successful season is to have success towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened to the Saints. And I'm sure there's a lot of Saints fans that feel pretty optimistic about the way the season ended.
Yeah, definitely. When you get a quarterback, when you have a draft class like this, it's absolutely fantastic. But the headliner, the most important player in that class is the quarterback, right? Tyler Shough. And when he steps in and he plays the way that he played in the beginning part of the year, in the beginning part of his career, once he stepped in halfway through the season, but in the beginning part of his career, it makes you only more optimistic about what he could become in 2026, 2027. I've said it before there, and I don't think this is really up for debate anymore, but the idea that Tyler Shough could be the future franchise quarterback for the Saints would have been a conversation much earlier had he been drafted much earlier. But because he was a second-round pick, it took a long time before people came around to that. But all of the doubters that Shough had throughout the season, you saw them quickly, in my opinion, get silenced. And there's no doubt that he has the ability to be a franchise QB in New Orleans.
So we can kind of start on that. Do you think then that, especially, it looks like this draft class, look, we still have no idea. Dante Moore has decided what he's going to do. But Ty Simpson, is more than likely going to end up as a first-round draft pick. Still don't know what's going to happen with Nussmeier. I guess we'll find out once the scouts get a hold of him. They take a look at him and determine whether or not he's still a first-round guy. So there might be a few first-round quarterbacks. I guess the question then is, next year I look at the class, and to tell you the truth, it actually looks like this draft class might be a little bit deeper than next year's. There's that possibility. Now, again, anything can happen where a lot more talent rises next season to compensate for that. Everybody's going to be talking about Arch Manning. I get it. So I guess my question then is, does that make it easier for the Saints, based on Shough's performance, to say, okay, we've got so many other issues on the team. Shough deserves the opportunity to be our starting quarterback in 2026, and then we're just going to give him that 1 year, and that'll give us the opportunity to decide whether or not we need to go back into the draft in 2027 and get a quarterback.
We're beyond that. I'm going to be very clear. We are beyond that. There is no give him another year to prove himself. He's proven himself. It's one of those situations where at first people were trying to see, can he play well enough to show that you don't need to get a guy like Fernando Mendoza, right? Like I think that was the idea at first, but I don't think that's the conversation. It's no longer, hey man, do you want to go get Arch? Or it's, how do we build around Tyler Shough? Because he is the guy. Not he's the guy for now. He is the guy.
Okay. So he definitely gets 2026. And see the thing, and the reason I definitely think that fans out there definitely need to temper their enthusiasm a little bit sometimes, is that guys like Shough should play a little bit better as a rookie than guys like Sam Darnold, who came into the league at 2021. And the question is going to be, can he take that next step? And that's we don't know. We'll find out in 2026. So I'm not really too surprised that he played better than most rookies based on his age and his experience.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the fairest. He didn't play a lot of football. He is older, but I do think the idea of getting reps is one thing. Brandon Weeden didn't come in and play extremely well, and he was older as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of times the age conversation around him either gets inflated or it ends up deflating him. I think the truth of the matter is he played better than most people expected. I think that he came in as a second-round pick, and the idea was the Saints will still be in the mix for the first overall selection. He had a great showing in multiple games where he showed the ability to be elusive. He showed the ability to be calm under pressure, which was the biggest knock against him coming into the league. He showed great ball placement, right? Strong command, strong leadership. Now, I think maybe the command and leadership you can attribute to what his experience sitting and in his age, right? He's had more time there. But the actual translation to the game, I don't necessarily think it's just cut and dry like that. So I do really affirm that he does have to take a next step. But the next step is not, oh man, you played poor in 2026. Now we're going to go get Lenore Sellers. I think that's confirmation bias of what maybe many thought he would be coming in. It's not what the trajectory actually suggests the Saints should do. If Tyler Shough has a sophomore slump, he just had a sophomore slump. And we'll see what he can be in year 3. I think that's the way to look at him moving forward, and not necessarily. I'll wrap it up with this. I no longer look at Tyler Shough under the lens of who else is coming out of the draft. And that is a result of how well he played in his rookie year. He has to sustain that the same way every other player has to sustain it. But that is firmly where he's at this year, next year. And I would say far enough for me to not think about anybody coming out.
Well, I guess. And look, the fact is that they'd have to have such a bad 2026, and he'd have to get injured in order for them to be even in anywhere near the sweepstakes of an Arch Manning anyway. So in that respect, that makes a lot of sense of what you're saying, especially with the fact that he's got something that really only one other young quarterback has going for him when it comes to the first-year head coach this past year and the success and being able to be groomed by the talent of that said coach. And that, of course, is Kellen Moore with the Saints and Ben Johnson in Chicago. And Caleb and Tyler, they definitely benefited, no question about it. Now it's up to them to be able to obviously take all in that teaching and that philosophy. And so far, so good for both of the quarterbacks. But we'll talk about the Saints, of course, since this is a Saints show. And it's good to know, though, that is something that, because we all know it's so hard to find a quarterback in the NFL. And it's going to be Tyler Shough's team now, according to you, based on what you're saying. And I trust that in 2026. And that means, again, good news for the Saints because they can concentrate on a bunch of other positions. Now, you talked about some of the other success that the team had as far as the rookie draft class. So let's go into that then. So tell me a little bit about the rest of the draft class and who you consider to be really top-end building blocks for the franchise moving forward.
Yeah, this is a foundational draft class for New Orleans, whether that's Kelvin Banks, who looks like he can be a true left tackle stud, put him on the side right there with Taliesin Fuanga on the right side. I think you have your tackles in general. Fuanga's a second-year player, but Banks is a first-year player who showed he was made of the right stuff to be in that position. You just keep going down the list, and you have it pulled up here, or this is the depth chart, but you have if you go down the list of the draft picks, it's just check mark after check mark after check mark. These are players who stepped into roles, some larger than expected, some exactly what expected, and they performed well. So Banks, Shough. Then you have a guy like Jonas Sanker, who wasn't supposed to play this year. He was supposed to just be a special teamer. He is a starting safety. He is your starting safety. And that is firm in my belief, because you want to have young talent. You're rebuilding. Yep. You want to have a bunch of veterans. So no disrespect to Justin Reed, but I'm more excited about Jonas Sanker because of the age factor that plays into it. You go into a guy like Vernon Broughton. He didn't play much this year because he got injured early. I'm excited to see what he can be. That's still a question mark. Danny Stutzman didn't get a lot of reps. He did split time with Pete Werner. I thought he played well in his limited action. I'm not going crazy about Danny Stutzman right now, but I am excited. And then you get to Quincy Riley, who we'll see what happens. But I think he has a really good chance of being a starter on this team as well. So as you go through this draft class, and I didn't mention Devin Neal, excuse me. I know it sounds like I'm just going and going and going, but I want everybody who maybe comes to the channel and is a loyal listener of the channel, but maybe isn't a Saints fan to understand. This is not me just listing people. This is me telling you about players who all came in and played significant snaps, right? Like even Danny Stutzman, who rotated, played notable snaps. And we'll talk about him in a little bit because I know what's down the line. Kelvin Banks Jr., day one starter, really strong at left tackle. Tyler Shuck, we've already discussed at quarterback. That's your first 2 picks. You have Devin Neal, who's a late round pick who ended up getting into the lineup due to injuries. And I think you have a chance to see him actually replace a guy like Kendre Miller on the 2026 roster. That's a very impressive feat from I believe, 6th round running back in Neal. Jonas Sanker is a starter at safety. You got multiple building blocks. The biggest are, of course, at premier positions, left tackle and quarterback. But I believe that Sanker is a building block on the defense. And I think that Devin Neal could either be an accessory with a ceiling to grow to being a running back who's a key part of a rotation.
Okay. So what is the draft capital like for the Saints?
Looking good, right? So you have a top 10 pick. That's always a plus. You want to have a top 10 pick, or you don't want to have a top 10 pick, but when you're in the Saints situation, you want to have a top 10 pick. And, I'm looking at guys like a Caleb Downs, like a Jeremiah Love with where they are. It wouldn't shock me if players like Arvell Reese don't necessarily make it down to you, but David Bailey out of Texas Tech is another option at edge rusher. So I think that you're in a good spot to acquire a top tier talent. And those are just a few names that I listed, right? Like there's multiple players who could make it to 8, but I didn't want to list 17 players.
Oh, yeah, it's early. It's early.
But yes, I think that you're in a good spot as far as the top end of the draft goes. And when you have a top 10 pick, that means you're going to be top 10 in every single draft or in every single round. And you have picks in most of those rounds as well. So as long as the Saints are able to they love to trade up. They didn't do it last year, but if they're able to make, I'll say all but one of their selections, meaning maybe they traded up in the 4th or the 5th round and they had to trade a late round pick, I think that you're pretty happy about the draft capital. It's just about how you use it at that point.
All right. So the capital's there. Now, unfortunately, the cash isn't there yet. So, and I'm sure they'll figure a way to get compliant. Everybody does. I guess the big question is, how compliant? Are they in a tough situation with any specific players right now that are putting them a little bit behind when it comes to having the necessary cash to go out into free agency this offseason and spend?
Tough situations? I don't think so. When the Saints, this is what they do. They make money every year. They're used to dealing with $70, $100 million over the cap. Right now, it's a minor number for them. So I do expect for them to easily become compliant. I expect them to make room for I'm going to say a free agent. I don't want to say splash, but I think they'll make room for a free agent who will come in and be a starter, right? Like they were way over the cap last year and they still found a way to sign Juwan Johnson and Chase Young to new deals. If you actually restructure those guys who are both going to be around, so it's okay to restructure guys are going to be present for you in the future. You restructure them, and I think one other player, maybe extend Chris Olave, I believe it was, and they're already in the black. So it's that easy to make money.
Sure.
But anyway, they had a lot more money over the cap last year. They still had those 2 new deals, and they also were able to sign Justin Reed to a decent contract. So I think that you can do that going into 2026 as well, where you get some money, and maybe you do say, I'm going to make a splash at guard, right? Maybe you say that's what I'm going to do. But I think that they'll create money to be able to be spenders in free agency if they want to spend heavy.
And the veterans, Davis, Jordan are both 37, Taysom Hill's 36. What's going on there? Have you heard about anything about these guys wanting to come back, wanting to keep playing? I'm sure that they're going to, even if they want to play for another year, they'll get a decent 1-year deal. I'm sure the Saints can afford it. I guess the question is, are they still at that point where that's the direction they want to go? Davis and Jordan have both expressed that they want to come back. I think they should come back to New Orleans specifically. I think that when you look at what Cam was able to do last year, getting 10.5 sacks, man, that was absolutely straight from the fountain of youth. I didn't expect that from him, and he was able to perform way over expectations despite playing the least percentage of snaps in his career. So that was extremely impressive. Demario Davis, he's lost a step, but he ain't lost that many steps. He's still a very talented player. So, and he was able to have a career high in tackles this year while being impactful. All tackles are not impactful. Demario Davis was making impactful tackles.
Taysom, I think that's where it gets difficult. He's the one who hasn't spoke about his desire to stay or leave, retire, or continue playing either one of those routes. He hasn't really spoke about it too much. He does understand there's a chance, and it does feel like he's more than likely going to be gone, right? He did lose steps. He lost steps, and he's not the player he used to be. Of the veterans, right, I think you probably throw Alvin Kamara in that mix. He's also a little bit questionable. I don't know what he's going to decide to do. If he wants to be back, I expect him to be back. But the one veteran who I think is more than likely gone is Taysom Hill.
Okay. Yeah. And especially out of the players you just mentioned, Taysom's the one that even if he wanted to come back, I mean, he's not going to affect the salary cap because he's certainly not making what he made in his last contract. So the other thing I noticed, taking a look here at the free agents that are out there or that are going to be on the block for the Saints. You mentioned Taysom Hill. Moreau and Stoll were also free agents, and they did sign. We didn't talk about the rookie they signed, they drafted last year. That really big kid from UCLA.
Yeah,
so is that the hope that again the guys like Moreau and Stoll, these guys aren't going to cost much, but how do you see the tight end room moving forward?
I think you got to invest in it. I think that Stoll is a player you probably want to bring back, right? Like you said, he's not going to be that much, and if he ends up being a guy who loses the training camp battle, so what? But I do think Stoll being a blocker is someone you bring back. Moreau just seemed to be not part of the offense much. You know, when he came back from injury last year, because he suffered a season-ending injury, when he came back, I can't remember like a handful of times I saw him. He just wasn't that impactful. I think that he probably moves on if he continues to play. And as far as Mataval goes, I'm not banking on that. If it happens, it happens. But I'm not banking on it. I think that that's a position that you probably want to invest in a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be a splash. It doesn't have to be a splash. I think Jawan Johnson is a good tight end. And if you have these positions, like you're probably going to pay Olave a lot. Shuck feels like he's a guy who's going to be paid. I think he's a really good quarterback. You start going through, it's like, all right, you can't have greatness at every position. And I think that Jawan is really good. I don't think he's ever going to be in top flight tight end conversations or top 5 paid conversations. So that's a good, cost efficient, hopefully reliable target. You know, he's still got to work on that reliability, but hopefully he becomes a reliable target for New Orleans.
Yeah, the other thing that we always have to keep in mind too is when you are successful with a non-first round quarterback, it helps immensely with the salary cap for those several seasons. And that's exactly what it's just a bonus. And it's another reason, a positive reason that Tyler Shuck had such a successful first season to give the franchise the confidence that they don't have to worry about that position in 2026 and maybe beyond. But that's definitely very important, especially again, look, I know the Saints, every team, as we just talked about, can maneuver around the cap and they can spend money. But look, you do want to get to a point in the next year or two where your salary cap enters the offseason with $50 or $80 million available. So you can go out and spend like the Patriots did or something like that. And I'm sure that's the timetable. They're probably looking at some point in the next couple of years, being able to be that type of a franchise. And having a young quarterback like Shuck in the second round will help up until the point comes where maybe it's time to pay him in a few years. And then that'll be another problem, but it'll be a good one. Okay, so taking a look at the rest of free agency, which players are the most important ones that need to come back? Because let's see, you've got Taylor, Bullard, Rumpf on defense, and you've got Raduns and Fortner on offense. So talk about any of those guys that you think are important to re-sign.
I'm bringing back the offensive linemen, and I think that I'm kind of okay letting the guys walk. The defensive guys walk. The biggest guy that you're looking at as free agency goes is Alontae Taylor. I believe that the Saints should be outbid for him. I think that the level of pay that he's going to get, he may even get outside corner money, not top flight outside corner money, but it's probably still going to be more than you would pay a slot guy, which is what he'd be for New Orleans. So I just think financially, you're probably going to get priced out of Alontae Taylor. So I remove him out of that mix for that reason. But as far as Radens and Fortner go, they can be depth pieces. I don't want Radens to be my starter. I want to try to improve. So I'm okay bringing him back under a certain number, him being Radens. Fortner, he's naturally going to slide in as my backup because Eric McCoy is still present. And until Eric McCoy is off the team, I don't expect him to lose his job, even if he has struggled to stay healthy. I think that Fortner will get paid as a depth piece. I liked what he did in relief of McCoy this year. As far as Radens goes, you can never have too many really good offense. You can never have too many offensive linemen.
Absolutely.
You need to get better at that position. So once again, do not sign him to be a starter, which he was for the majority of the season. But I wouldn't mind to bring him in as a backup just in case health happens, because the Saints have dealt with injuries along the offensive line for multiple years.
How many starters do they need on the interior of the line? 1 or 2?
Man, I'll be honest with you, maybe 3. Okay. Maybe 3, only because McCoy can't stay healthy. If everybody stayed healthy, let's say we're playing Madden and we turn injuries off, then your center is secure. After that, your guards, you need work. I think that you go, because for me, guard is the biggest need on this team, mostly because you need 2 of them. But left guard, go get me a guy in free agency who can be a starter. Day one, he's operated in the league. You know he's going to step in and provide you with something. Get me that guy. If there's a splash you make, it's probably there. Secondly, get me a young player in the 4th round, 3rd round who can play under Cesar Ruiz at right guard, and if Ruiz continues his inconsistencies, can replace Ruiz, right? I know you're not going to get rid of him this year. I don't think that happens, but you should start planning for the future. The same way you drafted Vernon Broughton, knowing he wasn't going to be one of your key contributors this year. You drafted Danny Stutzman with the idea of him replacing an aging Demario Davis. Well, this isn't an aging Cesar Ruiz. It's just a poorly performing Cesar Ruiz, but the idea is the same. Get somebody who you can replace him with once his contract is a little bit easier to get rid of.
Okay. So speaking of guard as a top need, let's then segue into the needs, the top 5 needs for the Saints this offseason. And guard is one of them. Where would you rate guard? Is that the top?
Number 1.
Number 1. Okay.
Easily.
And we'll put an apostrophe S. So multiple guards. Okay. Do you have it ranked? Do you know what number 2 is?
Yes. So number 2 is edge. I think that Chase Young had a really good season, but I think you need 2 of those guys. And though Cam had a great season, he's still in year 15, going into year 16. That's not somebody you want to bank on. I don't think that Carl Granderson is your guy. I wouldn't be mad if you go get an edge and then you drop Granderson to your 3rd, 4th pass rusher along with Cam Jordan. So that's my number 2 need. You want me to just rattle off the 5?
Sure. What's number 3?
Number 3 is running back. I think that Alvin could or could not come back. That has to be up in the air.
What would you do?
What would I do?
Yes.
If I were him, or what?
If you were running the Saints, what would you do with Kamara?
I'd bring him back if he wants to come back, but I would invest in the position. I wouldn't have him be my bell cow again.
And you would obviously let him know that. And the days of you being the number 1 bell cow are over. Are you going to be satisfied with that? And if you are, we want you back.
Yeah, that's how I would operate. I think that he's done so much for the organization, knowing the way that Kellen Moore runs the organization, that means something, right? So I think you're going to go in there with the respect of this is what we're looking at for you. And I don't think he would hesitate to retire. I'll be honest with you. I really don't. I don't think he would hesitate, but you lead with honesty with a guy like that who has been a pillar of not only your franchise, but also your community for years. So I think he deserves that. That's my number 3 need, just because you need some juice at that position.
Absolutely.
Alvin doesn't have it anymore, and the guys under Alvin don't have it, outside of Kendre Miller, who just can't stay on the field, so he's null and void. Number 4 is receiver. I think the Saints could use another receiver. I wouldn't mind if you go get that guy in the 1st or 2nd round if you add a top-end talent, but I do think Olave has proved himself in 2025 as being a really top-tier receiver. You know, maybe
do you look at as Olave as if you turn into a winning team in the next 2 years, is he a number 1 or a number 2?
I think he can be a 1. I think I don't necessarily. I think he still has something to prove to show that he is a top-end 1. So I shouldn't have said top tier. Because he's not that, right? Top tier suggests that he's around the Jefferson, Chase, Smith, and Jigba now, right? Like amongst those guys, and he's not. So I shouldn't say top tier, but he's really good. I think he can be your number one receiver, but I wouldn't mind if you go get a guy in the first round who ends up being a 1 or a 1 is a 1A, 1B type of situation. I don't think that is poor planning either. I do think that Olave and Vele have performed to make you say, I can wait if I need to. I don't have to feel rushed to get it. That's my number 4 need. And the number 5 is just tight end. You don't have many people. It's Juwan Johnson and Maliki Madaval. So you got to add some bodies there. That was a tough answer for me at number 5 to know which direction to go. I think the 4 are the 4, and then it's a little bit of a gap, but tight end just doesn't have bodies. You need bodies on that roster at that position. So I think that's the reason it's at number 5.
Yeah, and it just shows you, matter of fact, William makes a really good point that the winning streak occurred with a lot of backups as far as the receivers were concerned for Tyler Shuck, and that bodes well for a variety of reasons, and especially when you're rebuilding, you get the opportunity to see the young guys. So would Vele, would he be the only young guy though that you feel confident should be a part of the winning, or is there another young guy that you think deserves a shot to maybe get some significant playing time next season?
I'm assuming you mean specifically at wide receiver?
Correct.
Okay. Olave, Vele.
I mean, yeah, between those two, besides those two, huh?
Those two. And then, I mean, no one else proven anything.
Okay.
You go there with a guy like Jalen Polk, who was on IR his entire second year in the league. So he still has to prove something. You're looking at a guy like Trey Palmer, maybe, like that's also a position that needs bodies. They need players. They did play with a bunch of guys who shouldn't have been on the field. You traded away Rashid Shaheed. You cut Brandon Cooks, which solid move. You give the veteran a chance to go play for someone he can compete with, and now he's in the divisional round of the playoffs. But the truth is, where you are now, you just don't have enough players. So no, I don't have confidence in anybody being a part of that room outside of Olave and Vele. And Vele is not the youngest guy either, right? Because he did a mission before coming over to the league. So I think it's a shallow room, but I do like the top 2 guys. Okay,
so a lot is going to be added on offense.
Mm-hmm.
On defense, you mentioned the edge rushers.
Yes.
We talked about the older guys, Davis and Jordan. So which other players on defense should be part of the future?
Jonas Sanker at guard. I do feel that way about him. Chase Young. I should have said Chase Young first. Oh, my gosh. Chase Young was fantastic when he came back from injury this year. He's definitely the cornerstone. He's the young cornerstone on this team. Feels weird to call Chase Young, but, I mean, look up his age. He's actually probably much younger than many people would think he was, or he is younger than most people probably would think he was. Sanker, Young. I still need to see more from the cornerbacks, Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley. I still need to see more from them to really say that they're guys who are going to build around. They still have a little bit of a proving ground to me, though they have been impressive in spurts. I could see either one of them being your number 2 cornerback. I would like for one of them to emerge and be your clear number 1 cornerback.
So that's still something at some point, again, because it's not on your top 5, but you're still not sure they have a number 1 corner.
I'm not sure, but I think they have 2 players who are capable to emerge into being that, right? So that's the difficult part. And that's the reason it's not 5 on my list.
Okay.
That's the reason it's not 5 on my list, because I think you have potential with Riley. You have potential with McKinstry. You just kind of want to see what they're going to be, and you want to give them a chance to grow something, right? Like you want to give them that chance to do that. So that's why it's not 5, but yes, I still want to see a number 5. And one of the things, a number 1 corner. And one of the things you asked, when we were talking before, is what positions can be filled in-house. And I think that's one of them. The number 1 corner can be filled in-house. You just have to develop it. So that's where I'm at with the cornerback position. But maybe Brian Brzee. I want to see him put together the improved run defense with the also proficiency as a pass rusher he showed in past seasons. So I'm going to go Young. I'm going to go Sanker. And that's the only ones I can tell you with confidence.
Okay. And speaking of Brzee, so he's still, though, I mean, could you say that this was his best season?
No, I think last year was his best season, though he
Okay.
wasn't as impactful in the running game in 2024. Yeah, in 2024, he wasn't as impactful in the running game. He was so dynamic. He was the leading sack artist on the team. So I thought he was really dynamic rushing the passer, and you kind of saw that go away this year. It was a liability his running game, but his spin move, his ability to rush the passer, that's game changing. And the Saints needed that. So I wouldn't say that this was his best year. He flashed much more in his sophomore campaign to me.
Okay. And a couple more before I let you go. Is the staff intact?
Yeah. I think Brandon Staley did a good job. He didn't put him back on the head coaching resume job, right? So he's going to have to work to get that Charger gig off of his scent, but he'll stay. I don't expect anybody else to be climbing the ranks from New Orleans, right? Like, they had a very optimistic year. They did not have a playoff season. That's the type of team that typically gets called for, some of the assistants to lose, or excuse me, some of the assistants to take larger roles.
Okay, that's true. And by the way, special teams, do they still have to find their long-term kicker and place kicker?
Yes. The punter, gone. Punter will not be here next year. I'll be very surprised unless there's a massive improvement from Kai Kroger in the offseason. Charlie Smith, on the other hand, I think he will be here. Is he long-term? I don't know, but he will be here 2026. But Kai Kroger, no, I don't think that you're going to see him back in a Saints uniform next year.
Okay. And other than that, I think you have answered all of the questions that I needed you to answer for us here, Darrion. So I appreciate that. I know it's early. The season isn't even over there's only 8 teams left. But it is over for a majority of the teams, including the Saints. And again, when your staff is intact, it makes things a little bit easier to move forward and tackle free agency, developing the personnel that the Saints franchise needs to in order to make a run in the postseason. And I guess that's another reason for optimism for the fans is basically, if it appears that the franchise has found their quarterback, they like their head coach, the next step is taking a look at the division, and it looks like it's there for the taking. It looks like it's a division after what we saw this season that is definitely open. And anything can happen depending on the offseason that the Saints have going into next season. So I'm sure that's a part of the reason why there's a lot of optimism for the fan base.
1,000%. I think that step one has been done. Find your rebuild, find your foundation, things you can build around, check mark. Step two, and because it was, the end is so hot, maybe halfway through next year, we got to check our expectations. But I do think competing in the NFC South is more than a realistic possibility. It would not shock me at all if the New Orleans Saints are a playoff team in 2026. That doesn't mean that they'll be a playoff contender, right? Doesn't mean that they'll be pushing to make it to an NFC championship game. But when looking at the division, all you have to do is win that. And I believe that they are real contenders within their division, which means they could be a playoff team.
And the other good thing is that the team, based on where they finished in the standings, they get the luxury of the 4th place schedule.
Yes.
So that's what helps the NFL and become a lot more of a parity league. They do a great job with little things like that that make it, especially when there's a division that is maybe not that different between 1st and 4th, but the 1st place team, they get the 1st place schedule. The 4th place gets the 4th place, makes it a lot easier for that 4th place team to make a run. So, but again, it's just the beginning of the offseason, Darrion. So I look forward to at some point, either before the draft or after the draft, getting the opportunity to talk to you, especially, of course, if there is some big news around free agency. But we'll do that, and I appreciate it. And I've got links in the description of how you can check out Darrion's work at who.dish.com. And when do you post right now as far as videos, Darrion?
As far as Saints, no videos for the Saints right now, but I do my Locked On Horned Frogs Monday through Friday. So if those you are referencing, then that's
a busy time.
It is
the portal.
It is a busy time. Everything's always moving. It feels like the Frogs finally to calm down for a second. So I feel like I can kind of gain my bearings. I'm going to a movie in a little bit. I just hope I don't step out to 2 more new transfers. So
yeah, right.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
All right, Darrion, appreciate it. Again, look forward to talking to you again sometime in the next couple of months. And thanks for doing this.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. Have a good one.
You got it, Darrion. All right, so that's Darrion Gray with us from whodatdish.com. And we are going to be doing this again. Let's see. It looks like tomorrow and Thursday. So tomorrow, who do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow is Tampa Bay. So we have the Tampa Bay Bucks tomorrow. So that means we are going to talk about another team from the NFC South. So that should be interesting. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk to RJ Ochoa from the Dallas Cowboys about the Dallas Cowboys and their offseason. So Tampa Bay tomorrow, the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday, and then we will be back on Monday. That's I think who are we talking about on Monday? Minnesota? I think we're talking about Minnesota on Monday. So we have basically what you'll be seeing here for the next several weeks will be most of the teams that did not make the postseason. So those are the ones that we've already spoken to, our insiders and analysts. So check that out here. Make sure, of course, to subscribe. And matter of fact, I have to get used to doing this as a host and a producer. I haven't done it yet. Let me see. Yeah, I have to make sure I keep flipping this on every once in a while. Make it easier for myself to let you guys know to remember to subscribe and to like and all that other cool stuff if you want to follow us all throughout the offseason for our coverage on free agency and the draft. Don't forget over at the Ourlads Football Network at ourlads.com. This is really when things get exciting for ourlads.com with the NFL draft. The NFL draft guide will be available in a few months, so we're always excited about that. We get ready, of course, first with free agency, and that doesn't begin now for a few more months. So we still have more than over 2 months before free agency begins, but it'll go quicker than you think based on, of course, the NFL season not ending until almost mid-February. Then it's only a few weeks after that. Of course, we've got the All-Star games to cover. You got the Combine. It all goes pretty fast, and that's what we love about the offseason in the NFL. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're used to not being in the playoffs. I know the Saints have not been there lately, but at least they've had a much better run at it than my team, who can remain nameless at this point. So anyway, that'll be it for our show today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, the time is going to be 1 o'clock tomorrow. And that is going to be with our Tampa Bay coverage. And then we're back on at 3 o'clock, I believe it is, on Thursday. So those are the live broadcasts this week to cover the NFL offseason. You can also check out Jim Feist tomorrow in Las Vegas at Dom DeMarco's for his weekly show where they're going to take a look at the NFL playoffs. They're going to handicap the games upcoming this week. Jim, Andy Iskoe, Mark Lawrence, and I will all get together on Thursday on the Playbook ATS podcast at 1 o'clock Eastern. So that's what this week looks like as far as football right now on ProLine TV. And we've got college basketball and a variety of other sports that we're going to be tackling, including golf, which I'll be doing a little bit later on with the PGA Tour kicking off this week at the Sony Open. So I'll be doing that. If you're into golf, check that out. And also, we'll be getting into NASCAR next month with the Daytona 500. So, again, for Darrion Gray, Greg DePalma, thanks for tuning in here to the Ourlads Football Network, ProLine TV. We'll see you next time.